All right, welcome to Real Talks. We are going to be doing a spoiler cast today, so if you don't want to have anything spoiled for you about the new Jordan Peele movie called Nope, then I would not be listening to this podcast until you have seen it. However, me and my co-host here, David, say hi, David.
Hello.
We saw it. I saw it last night, and you saw it yesterday during the day, yes?
Yeah, no, I saw it in the afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. So we both
Yeah.
saw it. We both saw it in IMAX, which we both decided is absolutely worth it for this very particular film. I would say that the other Jordan Peele movies, it was not as imperative, but the way that this film was shot, I feel like you should see it on the largest screen possible. And David, you also said that that was absolutely worth it. Are you there?
Oh
Are you
yeah.
there?
I'm so glad. I am so glad I saw this in IMAX because it was just the whole movie. And he shot the whole movie in IMAX. And that's how the film was meant to be seen. It was just
Oh, he
unbelievable.
did. He meant it to be in IMAX.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
I had no idea. I mean, because we'll
quickly,
get into it, but all
yeah,
the shots are so broad and wide. They're very big shots. They're not so much there are some really, really cool cinematography that happened that were smaller things, but I almost feel like everything was very much from a spectator perspective in a lot of ways. But yeah, absolutely IMAX.
So tell me about the theater you were in. Were there a lot of people?
There weren't, which was, I don't know if it's because it was IMAX or maybe because it was at 7. 7 seems to be such a prime time for movies. So I'm kind of yeah, there were not many people at all in my theater. What about you?
I had maybe 10 or 12. Yeah. I mean,
same.
It wasn't anything grand. So, I mean, It was nice. I think people started to file in after, right around as the previews were starting or, finishing up. I mean, we can do a whole podcast just on that. I think 20 minutes worth of trailers, and look, I understand they need marketing or whatever else, but for some people that, they say 4 o'clock show, they want to be there at 4 o'clock. I mean, they can be there at 4:20 and not miss anything.
Exactly. Well, I'm a big trailer person, so I
let me ask you a question. Which trailers did you see?
Right, I was going to ask you.
Well,
this.
so am I.
Okay, so
I do
Black
too.
Adam.
I do too. What trailers did you see?
I saw Black Adam. An extent. Oh, it was the trailer I've seen before, though. It was the trailer I saw when I went and saw Thor: Love and Thunder. So I already saw that one. Really excited for it. Bullet Train. Is that what it's called? The Brad Pitt movie that we're going to do a Brad Pitt podcast about next week. So I saw that one. Already saw that one, though, as well. I was hoping for more spooky movies, but this was very much mainstream trailers only, I noticed.
Did you see the one I saw?
And I actually don't... What did you see?
Did you see the Oppenheimer one?
Oh, yes! Christopher Nolan!
Yes.
I almost forgot. So that's going to be about the atomic bomb, yeah?
Right. So that's a huge cast, and
yes,
the way it was done,
huge.
It was just unbelievable. But it had the countdown, and Cillian, I want to say his name's Cillian Murphy off the top of my head. I don't believe that's correct, but it's Cillian something, and he's actually starring in this.
Yeah.
So he's the guy
from Peaky Blinders
that played the Scarecrow.
Yes.
In Batman Begins.
Yes, he was Scarecrow. He was on this other movie with Rachel McAdams called Red Eye, where he played.
Oh, I loved Red Eye.
It was good. I forget about it all the time too.
You know, that's a movie that it's unique.
Yes.
But 85% of that movie is shot in one location. I mean, there are others like the Saw and the Black One, but that not until they get off the plane.
Yes.
And, all hell breaks loose. It's like, wow. The other one I can think of off the top of my head, too, is Phone Booth. Have you seen
never
Phone
saw
Booth?
Phone Booth.
Oh.
Did you really like Phone Booth?
That was one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was really good with Kiefer Sutherland.
Yes.
Oh, my God. Colin, the guy who just played the Penguin. Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell.
Not Colin Farrell. Yeah. So it was. But, yeah. That was shot in one, So, in any event, though, so that's the trailers we saw, and yeah, so I mean, definitely worth every penny to go see this in IMAX. So let's talk about the movie.
Yes.
What did you think? First of all, your overall thoughts. What were your overall thoughts of the movie?
Okay, so overall thoughts. I very much enjoyed it. I will watch pretty much anything Jordan Peele puts in front of me because he has just sort of proven himself to be a writer's moviegoer, like the person that cares very much about the characters as opposed to what they're doing. And my favorite thing about Jordan Peele movies is also that there's always foreshadowing of certain things. So he's sneaking things in here and there that you won't even maybe connect until much later. And if you're paying attention, some people don't go to the movies to do that. I do. So that's why I'm like, okay, why did they show us that? There's a reason why this happened. There's a reason why Keke Palmer looks down the well and a picture is taken. Like, I remember that because I'm like, people don't just show shit like that without it meaning something. So we got to remember that. And I love that about all of his films. That being said, one of my biggest fears for him, by the way, loved this movie. I loved it. It was very good. It was strong. But I liked his other movies slightly better, and I like Get Out the most. And you haven't even seen it, so you need to watch that. And
now I want to go back and watch Get Out.
Yeah, and I want to know how you rank these three, because I would still say it was Get Out, Us, and then this movie, Nope. Us and Nope might even be like a little bit even, but Get Out was the strongest. The budget for this film was so much bigger for him, and he definitely used it. And he didn't overuse it, in my opinion. However, I do feel like the spectacle aspect of it took away a little bit for me, personally. But also, this film felt kind of like Jordan Peele meets Spielberg. All right, your turn.
Oh, yeah. Loved it. I mean, I thought it was just... Now, granted, this was my first Jordan Peele movie, but it was just everything about it, from the stories to the characters to the backstory. I mean, just the motifs of what and how they were used.
Yes. A very
I think, honestly, to be frank with you, I get it. No. Well, no, I was going to say that I think that if anybody else, if any other filmmaker had brought this to another studio and said, okay, what's the title of your film? And they said, Nope. I'd be like, nope, get the bricks. Yeah. I don't think that they could have gotten made. Or I think they would have gotten made, but with a different title. And the fact that it was a one-word title, and you heard it 4 times in the movie.
Did you count?
Like, okay.
Did you count how many Nopes?
It was at least 2, but I know it was more like 3.
5. Like it was,
okay, so it was 5.
Because other people even said it, and I loved that because let me tell you, I was in the theater, and at one point to myself, without being ironic in any way, I went, "Nope." Like, that's literally something that's built into our vocabulary. And there were so many instances that I would have been like, nope, absolutely not doing that. Like, and that's the beauty of the title. So good.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was just, I'm so glad that I saw this in IMAX. It was worth it. And so, actually, this made, as far as the last night, it made $19.5 million.
Wow. Okay.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's one night. Now, it's probably projected at this point, and with a Thursday, I mean, I don't, usually count Thursday, but with a Thursday, I mean, you're looking at probably like a $40 or $50 million opening.
And again, since I am not the number person, how does that stack up? Is that a good opening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, his budget was, $40 million. So anything this movie makes in the second week is gravy. Is icing.
Oh, and it's only going to grow, I think. I mean, we saw it on the opening Friday. People are going to start talking about it. That's always when there's like this big boom, is when people, and then there's the people, to me, it's almost like all of his films are the same genre, but they're also different genres. For instance, like this one it felt like its own animal. And so it's just like, I don't know, there's something for everyone. Like maybe somebody that like wouldn't think to go to a Jordan Peele movie might go to this one because it's like alien adjacent, like it's something that's also relevant. By the way, I had this thought, and I want to know if you also thought this. This might be the first alien movie where they acknowledge and like confirm that we know there are aliens. Every other alien movie that has been made has been like, oh my god, it's aliens. Like we never thought this is made up and pretend. This one they literally were like, oh, that we have like aliens on camera now because of the Navy, blah blah blah. It wasn't, the marvel of it wasn't that aliens were happening. It was more like aliens are happening to us and we want to make money off of it. Like, it was such a unique thing. And the fact that the saucer itself was just an animal and not filled with aliens. That was genius.
Yeah.
Should we start at the beginning, though, before we do?
So, yeah, absolutely. So, the opening... So, we see the opening, and the first thing you see is this chimpanzee, for lack of a better word, and... He has, you want to talk about a creepy opening.
Oh, such a good opening.
There's a light blue shoe standing straight up in the middle of a soundstage.
Okay, why was it standing straight up? I was trying to figure out how it was doing that this whole time.
Because it ended up that way.
But there's no
I don't know.
Shoes like that.
No, I know. I
was really hoping they'd explain that, but I guess that wasn't even a
so nonetheless,
it was creepy.
We see this chimpanzee just covered with blood.
Yeah.
And so...
lifeless legs from behind a sofa.
And so
blood.
We don't know how this happened yet.
Yeah. But you're pretty sure the chimpanzee is like a culprit here.
Yeah. So it cuts to black. Nope. And then we move. Yep. And then we move forward. And now we go to this horse ranch.
Mm-hmm.
But before that... we go to, so we're at the horse ranch, and so you're going to have to help me with the star's name, because I don't have everything in front of me. But nonetheless, Keke Palmer plays the sister. So he's
in my opinion. Keke Palmer
absolutely
killed it. I think I personally am going to predict a supporting actress nom for this movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doubted.
She acted the hell out of it. Okay, yeah.
So he's talking to his father.
Yeah, Daniel
and
Kaluuya. I didn't look up how to say that.
Yeah. So he's talking to his father, and out of nowhere, so OJ is this character's name, and out of nowhere, these things just start raining down, whatever it is. And so eventually one of them gets his father, and he kills whatever the substance is, kills his father. And you see him just lifeless on the horse.
Yep.
And then he just starts walking.
Over. You don't know what the problem is. Also,
And so
I liked that
he starts
as stuff was
Go
so
ahead.
sorry. I just have to interject real quick. I liked that as you're watching the arena, you see just poofs of dust like popping up as if, and then you kind of like don't know what's happening, and then you're like, I think things are falling from the sky, like, but you don't know, you can't tell. It's literally they're coming down so fast that you don't see it. You just see the poofs of dust come up as soon as something hit, and that's genius because it's not like he's like, oh, things are falling. And so then you know immediately why his dad might have been in trouble. You more like just have no idea because he doesn't either.
Yeah. Yeah. So OJ just starts running to his father. And he eventually finds. So the next shot you see is he's in the morgue. And then you see this thing, the X-ray or the MRI of this, what looks like a ball bearing in his head.
Yeah.
And so.
But it was a nickel, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a nickel. And so later on, we find out. So essentially, one of the next shots you see is the nickel in a little bag, biohazard bag, because from the medical examiner, he kept the nickel as a, remembrance.
Yeah.
So then we go to the soundstage.
Yep.
And so he's, gonna have, so he's part of this Hollywood Horses. He's a horse trainer.
Well, right. So
and he has this. Yeah.
you find out. Well, you find out because at first, by the way, I like that we don't immediately know what's going on. You're like, oh, are these some ranchers? Are these just like maybe some people that do, like horse rides? You just don't know. And then the soundstage. So then you're like, oh, okay, movies. And then I love this, by the way. I love the insertion of history when Keke Palmer comes in and is like, does her whole speech about the first like moving picture was a black man on a horse and it was her great, 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 great grandfather or whatever. But I like this because A, representation is important, and Jordan Peele always manages to do something special so that it's, by the way, all the main characters were minorities, which I really liked. And the fact that you don't automatically think black man on a horse, because when you watched Westerns growing up, it was always white dudes. And so he's flipping the script on everybody. Not only that, but there's like, this is history that's real that never gets talked about, And then I also love that he kind of set the stage of like, we were historical in the film industry. And also that Keke Palmer is the mouthpiece of the family. And he is more like the anchor, that kind of, he somehow made that happen in one scene because the main character dude, I can't ever remember names. I'm terrible. I have a terrible brain for this. He was not good at public speaking at all.
OJ, no,
right.
OJ was not. And Keke was was just very Emerald. So Emerald just comes in, as you were talking about, and just does her whole spiel. And so was a great job of the juxtaposition of you're having your shy, reserved, introvert male character to your outgoing, look at me type of female character. So once again, there was that dichotomy of that, which was great. And not until later on do you see how she really changes. She goes from this bubbly, outgoing, person to when the cameras are off, so to speak, she turns real. And so, so something happens. The horse gets spooked in the thing, and so they lose the job. So essentially, the next shot you see is them going to this. Would you call it like a carnival?
Yeah. So, oh, by the way, one thing that's important to note that I feel like is that the fact that the horse saw itself in that mirrored globe, and it got spooked. Also, another thing to note is the fact that nobody was listening to the horse person who was there to literally ensure no one gets hurt. And it, like, he was just completely dismissed. And so, like, that's an interesting thing, because he wasn't, it's almost like he wasn't, like, being forceful enough. He wasn't, like, being assertive. And you see him being assertive later in the film. But, so they go ahead.
Well, that comes, well, I was going to say that comes, what you were just talking about, the horse seeing its reflection comes in very handy later on.
Several times.
So,
In fact, I really want to explore the mirrored globe situation and why he used it so many times. But okay, so then they go to, I would say a tourist trap amusement park situation. Like, what I kind of likened it to was like, what if, I'm trying to think of like a movie that everybody was super into, everybody saw it, had like became an amusement park. And it was like way out there though. My whole thing was like, who's driving way out there to see this? You know what I mean? Like, it was way out in the sticks. But yeah, it was just like an amusement park, like Disneyland, but lamer.
Yeah. So they go in, and so OJ starts talking to one of the people that run the. He talks to Ricky, who is really I would say the person who really runs it. So Amber is his wife, who we meet later on, who doesn't really have a big part, but we meet her later on. So Ricky and OJ are talking about the deal, or a deal. And so you could tell that Emerald had been really out of the loop for a while, because there's that scene right before they walk in, and he really wanted to keep the ranch. And she's like, that's dead. Let's just, move on with it. So they talk about the deal, and so she comes in, and she sees all this memorabilia. And she's, turns on her charm again. And Ricky's like, well, that was from this, and that was from that. Well, usually I have people pay money for this, but... And so they go into this other room.
They notice a picture of the television show that has a monkey. So, of course, immediately you're like, oh, and also birthday party. And it's like what we saw in the very opening credits. It was easy to connect backwards. And then this is the wildest part, and I want to like discuss this. Why, as they're going into this secret memorabilia room, which was completely about the horror scene we saw in the beginning, there was literally a shoe in the case that had the blood stain on it. There was like the outfit the monkey was wearing. It was very much like a fan. Why was he seemed so casually candid, and like nothing traumatizing happened to him. And then they they immediately switched to a younger him, like covered in blood on his face and breathing heavy and clearly traumatized. I'm just wondering, like, he was just like putting on a whole facade for these people. Like, that can't have been something that he wanted to ever like relive or remember, and yet he has an entire shrine to it, basically. I thought that was interesting, and I didn't.
Well, I think that the fact that he's got it tucked away, I mean, I think he's trying to compartmentalize everything, and so he doesn't have to see it. It's not like he has to walk by it every day. So the fact that he has it, it's a reminder to him that this happened to him. And so while he doesn't like talking about it, because eventually what we see later on, but it is a part of him. And that was, so I think the fact that, when you see, so the jump cut you see to what you're describing is him as a young boy, covered with a little bit of blood, but we don't see what happens yet.
We don't know why he might have been traumatized. We never saw him in the first.
But, so I think it was just a reminder. And so he, so they talk about it. And, so then at this point, So they're trying to. One thing I will say I loved about this film, it was like each horse had their own story. So we go from Ghost to Lucky to one of the other ones.
Oh yeah, to
Jean
backwards
Jacket.
to Jean Jacket.
They had all of these different, and each one had a story. So it was, him going to talk to Ghost, or not going to, but doing something with Ghost, and then, later on it was Lucky, and so I thought that was,
I did like
so
that.
we fast
it was
forward.
like what happened to each horse.
Yeah.
And everything
I thought
Jordan
it was great.
Peele, in my opinion, much like Hitchcock, everything is for a reason. And so I would love to wait a while and then watch it again, maybe when it's like streaming, and see if there's correlations between like the names of the horses. Because Lucky was actually pretty lucky if you think about it.
Yeah. I will send you an article I just read in Variety about them talking about Jordan Peele. I mean, he's dismissing it, obviously, but Jordan Peele being the next Hitchcock.
Absolutely.
And only under 3 movies. And how that, after only, because Hitchcock was only really remembered, he made dozens of films, but the 4 that he's really known for
Window.
is The Bird.
I'm guessing.
Vertigo.
Vertigo.
The Birds, Rear Window.
Wait.
Vertigo and Psycho.
Oh yeah, Psycho. I would say that one. Yeah, Psycho for sure. That's like number 1.
But that is but he made other films, but those are the 4 that he's most famous for. So they're talking about how he could be, So yeah, it's a good piece. But so we go back to the ranch, and so they starts out with Ghost, and so he talks and he basically, feeds Ghost and does other things with the horse. And I loved how he used the depth perception.
Yes.
In this. I mean, so we're in the stable.
So many good shots.
The stable, he's in the stable.
So many good shots.
So we see the light go on. And so, he wonders how it got on. Okay, so he goes to shut it off. And so then, as he's walking away, the first shot you see is this image. It's fuzzy and it's out of focus. And then you're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, you just don't know.
Okay. So he walks away, and the light comes back on. And you're like, oh, okay. And so it's, he turns the corner, and then he pulls out. This just shows you something. It's
I know.
flip
Why
phone.
does he have a flip phone?
Okay.
Although that seems like something he would have, though, right? Is somebody that's just like, I don't do that, like my phone.
Exactly. Out the sticks.
It does say something about him.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to say though, the little monkey aliens, I totally bought into it personally. I was like, no, because it's funny because I was like, this is an interesting choice. Like I believed it because I was like, Jordan Peele doesn't do anything like not on purpose, and the fact that these look like the weirdest aliens I've ever seen doesn't mean that they're not real, and they were like so creepy. And I honestly was like, this is so creepy. And then of course, I have to say the creepiest thing was when it was like just slowly looking like that killed me. That was like slowly looking around the corner.
Yeah. The anticipation.
And then of course you find out that they're just kids in costumes, and then you feel so stupid.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh my God. Like of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're just kids that were messing around. And
wait, didn't they do that though? Because
at that point,
didn't they do that because Keke Palmer's character Emerald stole one of their horses?
Yes. So what we see is she sets up, or later on, this little horse mannequin.
As a decoy.
Actually, as a decoy. So the next horse we go to is Lucky. And you were talking about Lucky and how lucky he was. And so it was just so at this point they figure out, okay, well, this cloud hasn't. So they moved. So I'd love to see
talk about how like the third character they threw in is actually like really important.
I was going to get to it now. So here, after they have this conversation, they're in the store, and Kiki's like, "Well, we can get this shot, the Oprah shot."
She wants to be famous. Is the thing you can tell. It's like she wants to be in the spotlight, and so she's like, "This will be our ticket,"
So then they're in Fry's. And, they put this, and of course you have this guy that's just,
know-it-all.
Late. He's like, I don't give a shit.
He's like, I know exactly, but whatever.
And Angel, and so he's checking him out. Can I get you to get us a warranty?
Yep, we don't need a warranty.
So it's just like, can I get thank you.
And then he's like, do you need someone to install it? And then my favorite is that Emerald Keke Palmer's like, no. And then OJ's like, oh, is this going to be hard to install? And the guy's like, you can't do it. I love that. Like, it was just like, there's no way you're going to be able to do it.
Exactly. So the next day he comes out, he starts installing it, and he shows him how to use it. And so he eventually says, he finds out he's like, well, what are you guys doing?
And they're like,
what are you guys planning? And he's like, nothing. And he's like, Jesus. All right. So he
figures it out because they always want the cameras pointed at the sky.
Right. But here's the kicker. He's watching. Right.
He asks, he said, hey, I can even do remote surveillance for you guys. And they're like, nope, that's fine. Immediately when he said that, I said, oh, he put things in place so he could do that. So they should just assume that's what he's going to be doing. And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah. So they, so what happened after that? So he installs it. And then, so did we see was that the first sighting after that?
No. So you skipped a few things. There was a couple.
Go ahead and tell me.
So when Ghost ran away the first time, OJ went to go get him, heard the screeching, heard the like, oh wait, was that when the decoy was out there? Shoot, you know what? I'm even turned around a little bit because he saw something. He saw something and then the decoy, okay, yeah, I'm confused now. I don't even remember which horse was first. But anyways, bottom line is.
So it was Ghost. Ghost was first, and then it was Lucky, and then there was another one after that, and then it was Jean Jacket.
Yes, Jean Jacket. No. Jean Jacket was not a horse that is alive now. They named the alien Jean Jacket.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, okay, so they try to get the shot. They were gonna get the shot of the flying saucer sucking up the decoy horse, but there was a bug in the way of the camera, and that's how we know the third character is watching, because he's like, there's a bug on your camera, get it off, there's a bug, and like, this camera is down, what about that camera? Because spoiler alert, since this is a spoiler cast, the alien has the ability to knock out anything, including phones. Like, all the electricity goes down, even battery powered shit seems to go down. So they are trying to figure out how to do this with that happening. And I think, did the camera guy, the Fry guy, the guy from the place, did he drive
Angel.
there? Okay, that night?
So what ended up happening was, so he was going to leave, and then the car broke down.
This is a different instance.
And that was the John Waits.
This is a different.
Okay. See, yeah, it's been yes.
Yeah,
So he
he
did
drove there
drive
to
there.
be like, you guys, like your camera, blah, blah, blah. And then also, oh, wait, no, he drove there the next day to be like, oh, it's real. The cloud's not moving. And they're like, oh my gosh, the cloud's not moving, or whatever. Okay, but I don't remember when this particular thing happened, but we somehow go back to the carnival and find out that the dude that was traumatized by the whole monkey thing has a new act coming out. And you start to realize that it's him being totally aware of the UFO and that he is like somehow trained it to and also we
Yeah.
find out that the girl who's monkey, well, okay, honestly this might be our worst spoiler cast ever because it is so hard to remember.
So what she's talking about is so they're setting it up. The decoy's already there. Okay, and so he's at the start of the road, and so at this point they don't. OJ and Emerald do not want Ricky to find out what they're doing, and Ricky basically says, "Listen." So they're yelling across the canyon to each other, and he's like, "I have this new show coming out. You should come see it, check it out, whatever." And so she's like, "Bye," and so they end up waving, and he ends up leaving. So, but the piece of paper flies away. And later on in the film, OJ picks it up. And that's when we go to the carnival. And this is where Ricky, we have him. So this is a shot of Ricky and
with the monkey.
Yes, well, they will. And yes. So what ends up you're right. So what ends up happening is they flash back to what happened with the whole TV show. And we see the chimpanzee go crazy.
Just beating people and killing people.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the kid hides underneath
baby Ricky.
the table.
Little Ricky.
And so at that point, so this is where the movie opens, and this is where we see the chimpanzee just standing there. This time, he walks toward Ricky.
Real quick.
And he's like, so he extends his hand.
He extends his hand for because he said at some point, adult Ricky said, that was the first exploding fist pump. So.
Yeah.
I was trying to decide this. Why do you think that the chimpanzee, had it not been shot before they fist bumped, do you think that the chimpanzee would have been cool with him? Do you think he wasn't going to kill him?
I don't know. I mean, see, the thing is, we don't know why the chimpanzee went bonkers.
This is a common story, though. We're always hearing shit about, this random couple, somehow got a hold of a baby tiger and raised it since it was little, and it was their pet, and it was great. And then one day, the instincts just kick in, and it murders everybody. And people are always like, oh my God, what? And so it's sort of this thing of you can keep a wild animal, but you can't be surprised when one day, what the very nature of it,
it becomes wild.
So that, I think, literally, the balloon popped at the party, and I remember that set him off originally, was that.
Yes. Because if you remember, that was the thing that when all that stuff got knocked over in the beginning with the sound set, the horse jumped. Too.
Yep.
So it was kind of like a, duality there. But nonetheless, so we go from the young Ricky to the carnival show, and now we see, this is going to be the last time. So this is when he walks out and says, "Hey, everybody, thank you for coming. Your lives are going to be changed in about an hour because you're going to see something that." And so they come early. And so the horse that he has that it usually takes off, doesn't go.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't move.
I thought that was interesting. Okay, so what was the plan, do you think? The plan was to have the horse run out into the valley and get picked off by the alien? Okay.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
I'm wondering what made him think that he must have been doing this for a while without a crowd, is what I'm guessing. Is that he has been...
Yes.
Which is why he thought, like, he had trained it. And isn't it an interesting thing that it's like his whole life was absolutely traumatized and changed because somebody tried to train a wild animal to do things for them, and then it turned on everyone. And then he is trying to do this now. Like, do you think it's almost like to prove to himself, like, it can be done? Like some weird childhood, like, adult correlation? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
To
Absolutely.
be like, no, I can overcome
Absolutely.
this.
Sure. Because you know what you learned. And if this is what you've learned and you're trying to control things or people or animals or whatever it is, you feel like, I can do this. And there may be a learning curve to start, but once you get it down, you're like, yeah, this is second nature. So he felt like, who knows how many horses this had been done with, or this could be the whole horse thing with OJ, and he could have been feeding these horses to this alien.
This whole time.
And he had no knowledge. He was
like, I'll buy them back. That actually really, like, that upset me when I realized that, like, he wanted to buy all of his dad's horses back when he got back on his feet, type of a thing. In the meantime, they're being fed to this alien, and I was, like, upset, because I'm like, no, it's his dad's horses. Like, that's a big deal, and he has no idea.
Yeah. So, at this point, the bug was on the camera. So the scene, so I sent you a text about this the other day, and it was today, and I said there's a scene in there that reminded me of a different movie, and you actually brought out a different movie. Tell the listeners what you were telling me.
It was funny that each of us had a different remembrance of an allusion or an alluding to another horror film. Mine was that at one point, the tech guy, again, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, I should know the name. Angel? Yes, Angel. At one point, when they're trying to get this alien on camera, it reveals itself and he goes, "It's here." And it sounded exactly like Poltergeist with that famous line of the little girl going, "They're here." And it's like so eerie and like creepy. And there's just no way that he said it with that exact inflection without it being
cadence,
And then I didn't remember, but David, you tell us what you saw.
So the scene where they're overhead, and so let me backtrack a little bit. So there were 40 people watching the show, and when this thing comes down, everybody disappears. And by the way, we never technically saw the alien, but we heard the cries, we heard the screams and everything else.
Of the people so a little bit that it sucks up during the show. That was so creepy genius. And also when we saw them being like digested in the ship, I have to tell you, there was like a moment where you're just hearing everybody like, because they don't know what's going on and they're in shock. But then the moment that like whatever it is starts feeding on it, there's like a different scream that happens. That's like painful and horror. And then you're like, oh shit, like this thing is like, this is crazy. And then I remember thinking at some point, oh, it's going to spit out all of the things that are not digestible. And that's what that was in the beginning. So anyways, all right. So all the people are in there screaming and you can hear it, which is just horrifying. And it's hovering above the house.
And so it does spit something out. But so you see the shot and there's a little bit of red. And it's blood dripping down the window. And so OJ is now coming back, and so he loses them on the cell phone, and it just stops. The truck stops. Mind you, he has a horse in the back. Anyways, so this was just crazy. So then I love this shot, by the way. Masterful shot. Opens the door. The lightning comes, and all you see is a river of blood.
Yes. The visual was insane.
And that's when he says,
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah, no, literally, it was raining blood. And the cool thing about this also is that Jordan Peele gave the alien a personality. It was being vengeful for eating the decoy horse. And it literally made it rain blood all over the house and was like being maniacal towards them. It wasn't just like, oh, a dumb animal feeding on whatever. It like literally had instincts, and that made it even more scary. Okay, so
the scene I thought of was The Shining.
You're absolutely right.
So in the scene where the boys playing, and you just see the elevator doors open, and it's a river of blood, and that's exactly what it reminded me of. I went, "Oh my God, that's right out of The Shining."
I feel like that was,
and it's just was crazy.
Was for sure.
Oh, absolutely, it was crazy.
So now I'm
gonna
have to think of like maybe other allusions we didn't quite think of that might have been to other horror films, because it can't just be two.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's others. Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked if off the top of you, because I haven't seen them. Do you think you could, off the top of your head, point out any in, let's say, Get Out or Us?
Nothing that came immediately to mind like this movie, where there was like a clear line that I was like, oh my gosh, that's Poltergeist. Not to mention, but also listen to this, like this, I think the reason that it works in this film is because it's also an homage to filmmaking. So it makes more sense in this one because it's literally like film history, film related shit. They're using movie horses in a movie that's movie shit. Like it's a lot of like layering. The first black man on a horse for the first filming, and then they wanted to film the first Alien, and so it was another black man on a horse. Like there was just all these layers that I love that they refer to. So I feel like the references only make sense in this one, not the others.
Okay. But so they finally figure out, or OJ figures out, that so they start to devise a plan. And I love the montage was not like a Rocky montage. Okay, it's a horrible analogy, but like a Rocky montage. Yeah. Where you see him training, and it wasn't like 2.5 minutes of him doing what I love the little Monopoly pieces. They put out the map. They had the 45.
Oh, not to mention,
thing,
they roped in a filmmaker from the original set that they were.
Right. So this is where the filmmaker comes in from the very beginning, and so she calls Emerald calls this filmmaker and be like, look. And by the way, his voice just was creepy over the phone. Anyways, and so he's like, look, she has this documentary that she's working on. It doesn't pay well, but we know that there's shots out there you can get the impossible shot. And so he's like, I got better things to do with my time. So at this point, I forgot, they get him on board at some point. And so eventually they come up with this devices plan. And like I said, they have the 45 as the ship. I loved it. And every single person had their own Monopoly piece. There was the thimble, the car, and I think the horse was in there too. And it's just like, okay.
Why did they not utilize the man on the horse? Was that just too on the nose, maybe? I don't think they used it.
No. They used that.
Oh, they
used
did?
that piece.
I don't know how I didn't catch that. That makes way more sense.
Yeah. So because she says, "Oh, I wanted to be the thimble anyways." And so anyway, so they come up with this plan, and they steal these wind. What would you call them? They're not toys. The things they're waving around.
I would call them car dealership attention getters. It's like
There
the
we go.
wavy, floaty,
Okay.
like little guys with the faces and the arms, and it's like constant air.
Yeah.
That was genius, by the way.
Yeah. So
that whole thing was genius.
So so they go and they get these things. And so eventually you start to see the shots of them and down the road, but they're positioned in such a way that you see a few, and then he just does a medium shot and then does a wide shot, and you see like 30 or 40 of them. And so at this point, somebody says, or somebody rolls up as they're finishing up. And they say, and this is a guy in a motorcycle hat.
In the mirror globe motorcycle, which is reminiscent of the thing.
What are you guys doing out here? So he's questioning. He's like, oh, well, and he's got a camera now because he knows eventually these people are going to catch on. So he's like, look, turn around. You just don't want to go down that way. And so he's like, you know what? All right, to hell with you. So he takes off. And it's lunchtime at this point. Because this thing just slowly comes out of the clouds.
Yeah.
And he eventually gets knocked. He eventually falls off his bike. So OJ is like, well, do we go after the guy? So he goes after the guy.
He's a very fair and true antagonist or
right.
protagonist.
So yeah. So he knows at this point that you can't do this. And the guy's broken, so he tries to carry him, and he realizes what's going to happen. He says, nope. And so he gets back on the horse, and he takes off. And he's like, what are you doing? And, of course, the guy gets eaten up. And so eventually they get back to he gets back to the house, and meanwhile Emerald's running back and forth from these cameras trying to figure out what's going on.
And also making sure her brother is okay. And by the way, for someone who has a really, really close relationship with my brother, it was they established the dynamic and the need for each other, very, very well. And a lot of times it reminded me of me and my brother. My brother is a lot more of the logical problem solver planner, and I'm way more of the mouthpiece, just going out and doing stuff. And so I really understood the chemistry there, and her stress made me stress. It's making the audience stress because she's worried about her brother and stuff. So, but also they both have the same goal.
So, yeah. So meanwhile, Antlers and Angel are filming at this point, and they're trying to catch this thing. So he has to change the film and whatever else. And eventually, I would say about midway, and just another thing we're gushing about here, you never saw the actual saucer until, I would say, halfway through the film. It was always these little hints, like the clouds.
Yep.
You saw the outline of it, or you saw just him eating, eating something up, but you never saw it. And so finally we see it. We see how big it is and everything else, and then it does pass through the clouds.
What did you think of the unfurling of the creature?
I could see,
I almost feel like it got less scary that way. It was more beautiful than anything. And maybe that was the point.
Yeah. Well, I think they wanted to show that, or he wanted to show that it was a actual thing, for lack of a better word,
with a mouth,
an entity. Exactly. So, OJ eventually gets to safety, and they got it. And so at this point, it was okay. And then once they got it, they figured, okay, so Antlers decides he's going to pack up and leave. And Angel says, well, where are you going? And so he double-crossed him. And he's like, oh, I'm going to get this for myself.
Okay, was he doing that?
And
because
so he's filming.
Okay, I thought that's what he might be doing, is going, screw you, I'm going to get it for myself. But I didn't see it that way. This is how I saw it as a photographer. I don't think that he was ditching them. I think this is a mentality that I get as an artist. We're here. We might as well do the risky thing and do it right. Like, this is totally something I've done where I'm like, all right, if I have to like wade into this water up to my waist, even though I'm not wearing a bathing suit because I want to get this shot, I might do that because it'll be a dope shot. So part of me feels like instead, that's why he looked at him and said, it's all gonna be okay. He wasn't, I don't think he was double crossing them. I genuinely.
Oh, okay. So
No,
maybe,
I thought he might be. But
okay.
then I realized, no, this is an artist, and he's literally going to possibly risk his life for the shot of a lifetime. Like, I am going to do it because if I don't, I will always regret it. And like, the impossible is impossible type of a thing, and it was. I mean, he got eaten, but he was willing to risk his life for it. And that's like total artist shit right there.
So,
like,
yeah. So, so he gets eaten, and then Angel is basically left by himself there, and he says, okay. So he starts wrapping barbed wire.
Which is smart because
himself.
I wouldn't have thought of that. That way he's not a fun, digestible person.
Exactly. So the enemy decides, okay, lunchtime, and he eats them, and then says, fuck this.
The alien says, nope.
And he spits it out. And he just rolls down the hill. And so at this point, he's all banged up. And OJ and soon then what they do is, OJ is basically trying to get back to everybody else. And this thing is now starting to get larger and larger. So they go, and Emerald has the bright idea of actually starting to So I should backtrack a little bit. OJ actually goes to the carnival, and he sees all of these, the debris of all of these things. The Coke cans, and just, so he knows, and the horse is still there. Because it didn't do anything. So at this point, he understands what needs to happen. So then, at this point, Emerald basically starts to unravel all of the chain link things, and we see this huge, monstrous, balloon of this cowboy.
Well, first, wait, I feel like you missed a pivotal point where her brother is luring the alien away on his horse, on Lucky, away from her so that her electricity goes back on and she can escape. And that was important to me because, again, brother-sister bond, my brother would 100% do that, and I wouldn't want him to. But it's just sort of the way, even though he's a younger brother to me, actually.
And you're right, and I missed the flashback of when, in the beginning, she says, well, that was supposed to be my 9th birthday gift, my horse. And so subsequently, she says, I remember you standing out there and training the horse. And he points to her, I see you. So when he's about to eventually, we think, get eaten, and he's going to sacrifice himself for her, he does the same thing, get to the bike. And so eventually, there's a little dramatic flair to it, and the bike starts, and that's when she takes off to the carnival to get its
attention.
Yes. Yeah. And so once there, she gets all the things, and the balloon thing goes up to basically because they also understood that the little flags, it didn't like the little flags too much.
But it does. But it also wants
So
to
they're
eat anything
trying to-
that makes eye contact with it because it's a predator.
Right. And this is when she says she remembers what you were talking about with the photobomb. She remembers the thing, and she grabs all these coins, starts slowly turning the crank, and slide after slide after slide comes out. Eventually,
My
she gets the
favorite
shot.
thing, though, is this. She gets the shot, right? And everyone in the audience is like, it's right there, grab it. And she doesn't. And instead, she sees something, and we don't know what it is, but she's really happy about it. And I almost wasn't sure if it was like the cameras or like the fame, but it's actually because she's looking at her brother who survived. But like my big thing was the whole thing of like she didn't even fucking go and get the picture. I hope she did, quite frankly, just because like all of that and you didn't go and get it.
Yeah.
But also another thing that I just thought of was the well operated on nickels. Okay.
Yes. So, yeah. So, I don't know if you saw when she was running and there was all these coins on the ground. So she picks up all these coins.
But were they nickels, like what killed her dad?
And,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. And so she'd insert one, turn it, and then do the crank. And then as, it was the cross-cutting there, which was beautifully done. And then what ends up happening is after, like, the fourth one, that was the other beautiful thing, too. The first three, you heard you saw the flash. This one, she put it in, turned it. She waited for the crank, and you heard silence. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Boom. And then the flash goes off.
I kept on being like,
shot.
I get the whole like keep snapping until like just in case because you never know thing.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I kept on being like, wait for it. Like, just wait. Like, she kept on doing it. And I'm like, wait. Like, just wait. And so she finally did. She gets the shot.
And
all the photographers show up. And I literally, like, I'm freaking out that she's not grabbing the picture. But also, I would be more interested in the fact that my brother was alive. So I get it.
So she's sitting against the wall, like, we got you. You don't mess with us. And then, so she's like, okay, in relief. And then she turns over and the dust, I loved it how the dust just parted.
Like a Western.
And he's just sitting there on the horse
Western.
and just like, at that final shot.
That was so good.
And that was it. And it cut to black. And I love the fact that they didn't have any, what's the word I want to, small talk.
No.
At the end.
It wasn't like,
do you know what I mean?
We
like,
sure
oh,
didn't.
I'm so,
like,
there was, there was a resolution.
Yeah, no, it was enough of
but
a
there wasn't like,
sure.
Right, and you didn't need any small talk. Because what could have happened is, let's say they're back at the house, and they're talking, and what they're going to do with the money or
none
of that.
Because it wasn't about the money after a while. I feel like, and I don't know why it wasn't. I was more of just like, it was something else. It was like being, again, what it was is it was being a part of history again. This generation has obviously a propensity to like become the first of things. And they were literally laying groundwork for another thing. And that's really cool. And I like that. I like that concept.
Yeah. It was just, I loved, there were so many like the shots, what you were talking about, like the motion picture, even it reminded me the live action when Antlers is actually rolling and you're watching the horse in the wide shot, and it's like a live action shot of that.
Yes.
Even when, Emerald's near the beginning when she turns it on and she's watching that. And, it's just like, wow, there's so many times he goes back to it, but just enough to make you go, okay, I remember this. Yes, exactly. And it
Yeah.
was just ah, now it
It was
really,
really
really
good.
good. And
Well, and if
and
you
so
love this one,
I
you need to
hope.
we're gonna add the other Jordan Peele movies to your list because
Oh,
uh
oh yeah,
honestly I feel like,
absolutely.
and this might, garner some criticism, which is totally warranted. Everybody gets their own opinion. I would say this might have been his weakest film, and that's saying a lot because it was strong. Like the fact that I'm like, this is
Yeah.
my maybe my least favorite, but I still loved it, and it was still for the way it was. I can't see how it could have gone better necessarily. Some movies I'll watch and I'll be like, okay, they shouldn't have done this, they should have done that. They shouldn't have done this, they should have done that. Like this would have been better if they had just done this or whatever. But this one, I don't feel that way. It's just more like he has a couple other stronger films, and yet this one was great. So he just really is nothing but strong films, which is amazing.
And this was 2 hours and
Yes,
ten
which I didn't
minutes.
feel like was
I
too
mean, take
long.
out 6 minutes for and take out
Yeah,
6 minutes for credits. So it was a little over
I
two
thought, and I
hours.
thought that was a good
But it
time.
wasn't like oh my god, this is dragging on. It never, not once
No,
was I ever
well,
bored.
okay, I was a little bit. It was a little bit of a slow start.
Yeah, I mean, yes, okay. The start may have been a little slow,
Yeah,
but it picked up quickly. Um, and so this is one of those things where it most all feature films have three
yep,
acts, and what this clearly defined, it clearly defined the
yes, it
acts.
did.
I mean, Act One was really about Lucky or a ghost, and that whole thing, and how they were going to do this. Act Two is when Angel came in the fray, and then the planning of it, and then Act Three was just the
Right.
execution of it.
And of course, the
I
execution
mean,
not going as planned, as it never does. But also, oh, I said
no,
this in the
of course not.
beginning, and I'm wondering if you kind of felt this. Maybe it's just because Spielberg does a lot of things with aliens, or it feels like he does, anyways. And also with like filmmaking and aliens, like things together, and like, I don't know. I felt like Spielberg movies always have a very obvious three acts. And I feel like this felt like a Spielberg movie, not necessarily in the way it was shot, but just in like subject matter and execution.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the best. I mean, you have to understand too. What imitation is the best form of flattery. And so when you have a film, if you're able to take little nuances from a film and put them in your film, it's not necessarily they're not necessarily callbacks, but they're paying, as you pointed out, homage to some of these
Yeah.
other filmmakers, whether it's Spielberg or whomever it is. And so I'm sure that if he were asked the question, Spielberg would be and has been a huge influence on it, because you got to remember he's only in
Right.
his early 40s. So you got to also remember at this time he grew up with movies like Close
Yep.
Encounters of the Third Kind and
Wait, was he
E.T.
Poltergeist?
and
Who's Poltergeist?
and Polt and Poltergeist. And
Oh,
no,
okay,
he
okay.
didn't do Poltergeist, but just
Yeah,
watching
yeah,
these
yeah.
films, and also being able to, I mean, and he also, I'm sure, watched War of the Worlds, done by Spielberg, and really got an idea of, okay, this is
Yeah.
what I want to do. And so when you're able to take little pieces out of them and then execute your vision using a little here and a little there, it's like
Yeah.
tweaking a recipe. You may have a great recipe, but if you add this ingredient or that ingredient, you're making it better. And that's what it is. Um, but yeah, as far as for me, he has to get a larger sample size.
Fair.
I mean, the simple fact of the matter is 3 films, and that's
Yep.
fantastic. And every single one of them has been critically acclaimed so far. But he has to get a larger sample size. If we're still talking about this guy in 20 years making these kind of films, I would put him, regardless of the Oscars or whatever, I would put him on the pedestal of a Hitchcock. But right now, we're
we
only
haven't
3
had a
films in.
Hitchcock since Hitchcock, if you think about it. Like, there's nobody I would say that deserves that at this point.
No, absolutely. And the thing is that you can only, with 3 films, you just can't have enough. Let's see what happens in the next 10 years. If he comes out with 2 other films and they're always good and they're always suspenseful and they've got the horror, you know what? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'd put him on that level.
Sure.
But right now, it's kind of like, okay, 2018. No, absolutely. I mean, and that's why, I always kid with my, coworkers or even people I talk to is like the greatest of all time, the GOAT. There is no GOAT. Now, you can say monetarily, this person made more money, or this person has more championships, or this person has more rings, but it's all a generational thing. So, for example, people, they think Spielberg is the greatest of all time. Why? Because he's got 2 Oscars for Best Director. And he's done a plethora of films that are iconic, whether it's Jaws or Raiders of the Lost Ark or E.T. By the way, if you want to go back and listen to the Steven Spielberg podcast I did a couple of months ago, we talk all about that. But, basically, this is what he's been doing. Now, has he had some bad days at the office, like Warhorse? Yeah, that's going to happen to everybody. But it's clearly defined. And he even went through a period where he did war movies, like Schindler's List, which I personally believe is his masterclass, like A Saving Private Ryan, like a Band of Brothers, which he was in an EP on. So it's, people will say, oh, well, what about, Martin Scorsese? Yeah, great. He's been around the block. He's been making films for 40 years, and he's been doing mob movies for, which, by the way, we're going to be starting Mob Mondays in a couple weeks, and then I will be kicking off with The Departed and Goodfellas. Check that out. Anyways, but the simple fact is he's been making unbelievable mob movies for the past 40 years, whether it's Goodfellas or whether it's Casino or whether it's The Departed, which, won Best Picture. And, I mean, so many other movies. So the greatest of all time, you have to really get a lot. There is no... It's a generational thing.
For sure.
Plain and simple. And all film is subjective. So those people that may like Spielberg may not like Scorsese. And those people that may not like Scorsese may love Spielberg. It's just one of those things. So... this unfortunately is not going to do the numbers. And it's not about numbers for him or whatever else. But it's just, as far as the movie is concerned, I mean, it's opening to almost 4,000 theaters this weekend, but it's just not going to do the numbers. And it should. And it's like, this movie's already made its money back. And this is why he wrote, produced, and directed. And there's only a few guys out there that can say, I did this too. Because it's so much work. You have so many hats you're wearing.
I'm glad you loved it. I'm excited to know
I want
what
to go
you
back
think
and
about
see
the other
it.
ones.
And so...
But
no, I'm definitely... It's one of those things where I think that I'm dying to see what he does next.
We all?
Because it's one of those things where he's already working on the next project.
Oh, for sure.
And so we all want to know. I mean, we're all taking this in now as, moviegoers, but guarantee you he's hard at work on another script right now and doing something. Let me ask you this, because he uses the same guys in a few of these. Would you like to have him do like a linear story? Not a franchise, but like a linear story with a couple of characters? Do you think that would be a good idea
I think
with
he would
him?
do it well. Yep.
Okay. I mean, because, let's face it, slasher flicks, I'm not talking about him being a
just
slasher
having some kind of
flick.
a...
I'm just saying that it's more of, I think that if we got a story and it kept with the same characters, I think people would care more. Kind of like, it's going to be a horrible example, kind of like a Marvel, and the characters, but it's more of a build-up type of thing.
Maybe he would redefine
I think
kind of the slasher trilogy, or octology in the case of like Halloween. There's like a million Halloweens, a bunch of Screams.
Yeah.
But maybe he could kind of redefine it. But we definitely got to wrap this up. So
yeah, no, what you were saying though, actually Halloween Ends, which I have no desire to see, comes out October 14th.
The last one ever.
I just it just
I don't have any. I don't want to see.
Yeah, they just. But all right. So
Brad Pitt pod next.
This is
next week.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do? So actually, I talked to Chad Holloway, and we're gonna be recording his interview on Friday, this upcoming Friday. So that will be good. So we do have the Brad Pitt Bullet Train preview coming up, as well as retrospective of his career. I'm thinking what we're going to do is, since we had Ryan on for the Blockbuster preview, I'm going to try to get him come on.
That'd be great.
August, and we can do like a little end of the summer preview, or end of the summer wrap up. And so maybe even look toward the fall and what we do there. Yeah. And so we do, if you do want to follow us, I'm on Twitter at WannabeRounder, and Instagram at DCaduto, and
I'm on Instagram at Elisa Ivers, and TikTok.
Outstanding. We do have a Patreon you can go visit for pretty affordable levels: $3, $7, $15,
Follow us
and
at the
$20.
very least, guys.
If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, follow us. I happened to notice the other day there were a lot of people that are listening, but they're not following. Follow us. I'll give you, tweet your name out, and or send me a request. Let me know your name, and I'll give you a shout out. And all
right,
that's about it. So that's gonna wrap this up. This has been the Nope Spoilercast, and I'm looking forward to doing the next one.
Spoilercast, guys, and thanks for listening. And I'm gonna start it this time. This has been Real Talks, and I'm Elisa Ivers.
And I'm David Steele. And this has been Real Talks.